Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. So now that we have the stone veneer installed on the back and the front porch, I just needed to do a couple final details here, and the biggest ones being I needed to bring out my receptacles that were originally flush with the stone wall, the block wall on the back, and they were exterior weatherproof boxes. And when I brought this stone in, it now protrudes out about 2.5 inches beyond where it was before. So I went through a couple different ideas to try to bring this box out, but I'm just going to show you kind of what I came up with. This is not the only way to do it, and I'm no licensed electrician, so if you have a better way, definitely feel free to leave it in the comments. But this will pertain to our exterior outlet here, and then same thing with our lights. So we have our 2 lights, and they come out 2.5 inches here too, so we're going to have to get another box in there. But most of the problems I had so far was with the outlet boxes. So first thing I did here was, of course, go inside and turn off the power to the receptacle here. So of course we have no power, and I'm just going to work on taking this box out because I just had it installed temporarily so the stone veneer installer could use it if he needed it. Okay, so the first thing we run into is that our original wire is a little bit too short to reach the new outlet box. So of course this is 12-2 wire, and all I'm going to do, since it's already in a box back here, I'm just going to put a little wire nut on these and extend them out just to be able to reach out farther to give me some room to work and put this new outlet in the receptacle. Okay, so that was a pretty tight spot, so it wasn't really easy to film in here, but basically just have 3 wire nuts on there for the ground, neutral, and the hot wire, and that just gets me a little bit more wire to work with, and you can still get to those splices if you ever need to. So next thing, we're gonna put the extension box on. So this is the only extension box I was able to find at these big box stores. So all this does normally is extend your receptacle out from the wall, and this is only 1.5 inches deep. So since this is about 2.5 inches deep, if you just put the extension box on here, obviously you're not going to be able to put the weatherproof box on very well, since it usually doesn't come out all the way. And you could potentially just use a bunch of these little yellow spacers that fold over themselves, but once you get up into the 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of them, it doesn't seem very secure to me. So what I ended up doing was getting some 1-inch metal spacers, and I'll show you those in just a second. But if I put a metal spacer between this screw and this extension box, I can actually shim it out to where it's flush with the stone here. So, and I just have to fine tune those, cut them with a hacksaw a little bit, but I'll show that here in a second. Okay, so this is the spacer I just mentioned. So these come in metal, like a cheap soft metal, or they come in Teflon or like a hard plastic. So I think either of them would have been fine. I opted for the metal ones just so I'd have a little bit more rigidity. But this is a number 10 5/16 inner diameter by 1 inch long, and I knew I got the 1 inch long versus a shorter one just so I can fine tune it with the hacksaw if I need to. And basically the idea is just I'm going to use this as more of a rigid spacer than those yellow things, and I can put this in here, put my extension box on, and use this as more support for the backer before I put the exterior weatherproof box on. Okay, so here's a better close-up of what I was just explaining. So I have my extension box here, which is only 1 7/8 deep. I have a 2.5 inch or so depth here to get to the flush with the edge of this block, and I just use this spacer here, hopefully you can see in there, to almost be like a standoff. So when I screw in that number 6 screw at the bottom, it creates that 1 inch space. So you can see when I put the box flush though up against that standoff back there, I still have about 3/8 of an inch protruding out. So just take the hacksaw and I just cut off about 3/8, and I just eyeball it. It doesn't have to be perfect, of that standoff, and that for the other side got me really close, and I was able to get it pretty flush. So I put my light on there. So there's that standoff, and once you tighten it down, this thing is pretty sturdy in there. So you could even throw some silicone caulking around the edges or something like that too, just to kind of lock it in better and maybe keep a little bit more moisture out, since the weatherproof box doesn't quite cover all of the stone, but that's something we can get into later too. One more thing I wanted to mention too is, since I have a 1-inch standoff and we're going into that plate behind, I had to swap out the standard screws for these number 6 1.25" screws. That way I'd have enough length to have a little bit of working room here and also be able to go through the standoff. So definitely need to get the longer screws than what these, I believe they're 1-inch, would come with the actual outlet. Okay, and so after hacksawing these down about that 3/8 of an inch, here's our new length, and I'm just gonna put them in there. The top one with this little sliding hole on the top, you could actually put this one in first, and then we'll put the box in, slide it over top. It makes it a little bit easier to put the bottom in. Okay, so now you can see with these spacers in here, see if I can get my light, that with that little standoff in there, we have the bottom secured and the top one secured, and this box is plenty sturdy enough, so not really moving much. Like I said, it could trim off maybe another 1/16 to 1/8 of an inch here just to get this perfectly flush, but if it's protruding out a little bit, not that big of a deal. So I'm just going to work on getting this weather box in now, and then we should be able to put some silicone around the edges here just for some extra protection, and we'll be good to go. Okay, so since that's secured, I'm just going to go around these edges here with this, just a standard window door siller. So I'm going to get this opened up, get some caulking around here, and should be good to put the weatherproof box back on. Of course, I'm using black just in case you see any of it. It's not very noticeable. Okay, so we have that in, and last thing, we have our weatherproof box. It's kind of old, has some mortar still on it, but we'll get it cleaned off after we get it installed. And this is basically just an outdoor weatherproof box, has a plastic cover for the receptacle. The gasket on the back used to push up against the block, but it doesn't quite go the full square as this. It's about the same size, so that's why I think that silicone is really going to help, and this will just be a little bit of extra protection, maybe just a little bit of insurance. So bolts go in and slide our receptacle in. We can actually slide the screws on here and then just slide it over to the right, and we're good to go. So tighten that up, and this will be our final look here. So get that done now. Okay, so and then here's our final product. So I cleaned a little bit of the mortar off here, still a little dirty, but I'll take care of that later. We have our GFCI, turn my power back on, so all I have to do is test it to reset it, and should be good to go. We should have power now, and you see our box is nice and flush with the stone. We do have a little bit of that silicone poking out there, which is why I wanted to put that on first, because the gasket doesn't quite cover 100% of this cutout for the stone if it's not 100% centered. So hopefully this helps out anyone else. The lights are basically the same setup, so it's about the same depth. Again, they make these 1.5 inch deep receptacle extension boxes, and since mine used to be through cinder block, I actually have PVC conduit in there, or the electrical conduit with a threaded piece on the end. So I could potentially have a box in here and just thread it onto this pipe, but from what I've noticed, I should have had the threads recessed slightly in so that way the whole box made contact with the back here, because when I thread a box on and the only thing touching is the middle, it's pretty wobbly. So what I ended up doing here was just taking one of these extension boxes and tap conning it in to my block here and here, and I only have to bring it out an extra 3/8 of an inch or so here, so I was able to use those yellow spacers. But if you needed to use the standoffs like I did on the bottom, it'd basically be the same thing. So hope this video helps you guys, and maybe this is a common problem, maybe it's not. If you guys have any better ideas on how this could have been done, you know, feel free to leave it in the comments. But until then, I'll see you on the next video. Thanks.